fully winging it, eh?
Winging it. No notes.
Yeah.
See where we go.
We're just straight podcasters now, bro.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
You gotta, what is it? Fake it till you make it.
Indeed.
Welcome to the BMI Podcast, guys.
Welcome.
Today we're talking about accountability.
We hope.
Yes. We are known to run off in tangents, so...
And before we actually get there, please like and share.
Yes.
And subscribe, because we always miss that part.
Yep. We just get straight into
into talking about it. Yeah, exactly.
And I guess today's sponsor is Little Cherry Coffee Cup.
Indeed. Thank you to Little Cherry for the caffeine, keeping us on our toes.
I definitely needed it today. It's been a busy
Full
week
week
for me. Yeah.
Actually, that's probably a nice little segue into accountability. Do you have any either business mentors or people that you use to kind of keep you accountable in the business sector?
I'd probably just say it's Andy Frisella.
Yeah.
If I'll be honest, if you were to pull up a list of just overall content that I consume, I only listen to his podcast and my own.
Yep.
I dabble through some video podcasts with Patrick Bet-David.
Yep.
But I'm not subscribed to his audio only whenever I'm at the gym. So whenever I'm at the gym, I listen to the Q&AF, and that's a lot to do with his business. And then sometimes I listen to his Cruise the Internet, where he's just talking about daily issues that are, in news posts and stuff that that they're scrolling through the internet.
Yep.
So that would be where I would pull for my accountability. It works a lot because he siphons through questions that people are asking him about business, and it'll be different topics like I'm struggling to start a business with my dad. This was the one that I listened to yesterday. How do I negotiate with him without offending him because I think I'm bringing more to the party, blah blah blah, and they say all of these sort of nuanced questions that are really tailored to specific things, and I like to listen to those because it also gives me ideas, and that's how I would approach that situation if that came up, and
would you I'll get into kind of have you heard of the zone of proximal development?
No.
I'll get into that, which kind of leverages off what we're kind of talking about, but I guess without listening to, which is hard to hypothesizing because you obviously do listen to it, but without listening to the likes of those podcasts, would you think some of these, I don't know, whether or not that's the different ventures that you take on or the different growth phases that you guys go through in business or even in your health and fitness, without that support, do you think you would still take the same steps or be willing to take those same steps or think that you could achieve the same goals?
Yeah, it's hard to know whether it's having a direct effect, right? And it's a good point that you're bringing up about a mentor or someone to look up to. It's probably a piece that I'm missing.
Yeah,
is someone that's further along the track. They say you should have two mentors, one that's a couple years ahead of you, and then one that's miles above you and what you could ever dream to be, that's someone else you should try to be in connection with.
Yeah.
And I do find that with me, it's hard with the property development. I think I've starting to form a few relationships with coffee, with the coffee sides of things. The person, even if I don't buy the coffee roast off this other guy that I've been in talks to, he's fixing up one.
Yep.
I kind of think I might lean. He seems quite helpful, and he's open. Well, he imports his own beans, so he's kind of going to get a bit off of the back of that relationship as well. If he supplies me beans,
for sure.
But he said he's happy to show me how to roast and all of these sort of things. But it's having a mentor that can give you some feedback and be like, hey, this is where I made my mistakes. I feel like I'm missing that.
Yeah.
And someone like we're talking about. The topic today is that someone that can hold you accountable and be like, you said you were going to be doing that by this point, Aaron. Why haven't you done that?
Yeah.
And it's not more there for you to create an excuse. It's more like someone's there to be like, hey, highlighting this area where, you said you were going to do X, Y, Z. XYZ hasn't even been attempted yet, you know?
Yeah. Well, and so it's interesting you bring up the two different people, or you mention those two people, like one that's actually far outside of your reach and one that's, you know, close to where you are, but just a little bit ahead of where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually the zone of proximal development, it's like the activity rings on an Apple Watch or on an iPhone, or like a bullseye target kind of thing.
Yep.
So 3 different rings. The smallest ring is essentially what your current capacity is, or what your skill set is, so what you can currently do.
Yep.
The outside ring, the furthest outside ring, is essentially things that you can't do. So think about goals that you haven't yet achieved and you couldn't achieve currently where you are. So I don't know. There's no way right now that I could hit, unless I completely fluked it, 10 free throws in a row. Because I don't have the skill to do a free throw.
Yeah.
Right? I couldn't swim 10K.
Yeah.
Right? So like there's no way I can do that right now based on my current proficiency.
Yeah.
I couldn't make $1 million. Like,
yep.
Right now I have nothing that'll give me $1 million. Right?
Yeah, you haven't built that skill set up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So the furthest ring is what you can't do. The closer circle is what you can currently do. But then the proximal, or the zone of proximal development, is that middle ring, which is kind of that person, that second or the first person that you mentioned that's just outside of where you are. And so that person there is kind of like this area, or the zone of proximal development is essentially what you could do with help. And so whether or not that's attaining a mentor, getting a program so that I could swim 10K. Nutritionist, exactly. Personal trainer. It's doing the study so that I can pass the exam. All of these things, all these tools, essentially with help that allow you to grow and progress. And I think that accountability side of things kind of takes you from wherever you currently are. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be another person, but it often helps being another person. But it takes you from where you are and bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to go, and allows for that kind of steady growth or progression towards that goal. Otherwise, you know, quite often, how many times have you had like different goals where either the goal was too easy, so if we think about this through the 3 circles again, you're essentially trapped in your own, you're already competent, like you just get bored because you can already do it, maybe table tennis. You know, like, if there weren't enough people that could challenge you, it was like, wow, this is kind of getting a bit boring because I know I can beat these guys and I don't really have to even try to do it.
Yeah. That was the level, right? When I was playing, it was just no one in Waikato could challenge me. I had my brother and stuff, but then when it came to fine-tuning that higher level of things, I had to go train up in Auckland.
Somewhere else.
I had to go, and whereas they had a whole bunch of Chinese guys that went over to China to train because they sort of became the top in their, like you're saying, that little circle. They became very competent. Yeah.
And then same thing, you go so far outside of that, and if you have a goal that's far too large, so like I said, for me, if I wanted to swim 10K right now, well, I have no real method or knowledge on how to get there. And so I'm going to procrastinate because I just don't believe I can actually do it because, well, I don't have the skill set currently. And so the zone of proximal development, or that middle circle, is, you know, having enough so that it's challenging, but also continuously progressive towards wherever it is that you want to go, and especially if where you want to go, and for most people it is slightly out of their reach. And so if you've never been somewhere, or you've never achieved a goal, whether that's $1 million, whether that's swimming 10K, running a marathon, or losing 50 kilos, whatever it is, you know, often actually having someone to kind of guide that process is, at least in part, a way that you can build that kind of zone of proximal development. And interesting you say, like, it would be beneficial to have a mentor. You know, I was thinking the same, because we go through, I don't know, when we did 75 hard, right? Like, we didn't necessarily have a coach to do that.
No.
Like, we weren't outsourcing anyone to do that. But how much harder is it when it's only you doing it, especially for the first time, in comparison to then even just doing it with a friend
Yeah.
and doing it with someone else. And so you can kind of leverage each other of, hey, this thing is really out of our grasp, but we can almost kind of work together to kind of push that boundary in progression.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I wondered if there was any other area in your life where you could kind of make that similar example. And I mean, for me, definitely within my job.
Yeah.
But maybe even the weight loss side of things.
Yeah.
From where you've come so far.
Yeah, like it's funny you mentioned like 75 hard. When it comes to accountability, it's kind of, you bring up a good point, like how it's hard to go for it your first time. And I haven't really said it out loud, or I haven't really told anyone that my intention behind 75 hard, but I want to do 75 hard at least once a year. I'm not hugely strung up on the live hard. Like I probably should do it. Like, or if I can, maybe I will do it. But I want to sort of set it as minimum. I want to be doing 75 hard once a year. And it's funny you bring up how starting at your first time is a lot harder, and then having someone being there with you, holding you accountable, is quite helpful. And I'm thinking of reaching out to a few of our friends. And I'm going to be like, hey, here's the podcast. Go listen to that. Is this something you'd be interested in? I'm happy to do it with you.
Yeah.
Because I pretty much keep the program almost every day. I would be picking up a few of the habits. Yep. Be the water, and the reading would be, I'm still reading, but I'm definitely not reading 10 pages a day. I would say 3-4 times a week. Yep. I'm reading.
Yep.
And I want to sort of reach out, and because I know how beneficial it has been for me, not to get people into like program type mindset or anything like that. I just think there's a few people that could do it. Yep. So I kind of like want to, give them a helping hand and be like, oh, you'll really benefit from it, and I'm happy to do it with you. And I think having that person do it with you is just a little less daunting, and I feel, probably because I posted about it multiple times, I feel like a few people have already looked into it, or I've been asked a lot about it, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, and it's sort of, planting that seed. And I want to maybe sort of reach out to a few people and be like, who wants to do it again? Like I'm going to do it regardless. And then even then, like I want to help them all the way to the end. If they fucking fail, I'll start again with them. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't mind blocking out 120 days worth if it's going to get them across the line.
Yep.
Yeah,
well, I'm probably similar to you in that I like being on that side of the fence, but I'm not that good at having my own like mentorship group.
Yeah.
And so like when it comes to fitness, like I will have a mentorship group, but I guess they're much like Andy Frisella. They're people that I kind of respect or follow online, and I don't have direct contact with, but I'm leveraging their knowledge to help improve my own knowledge.
Yeah.
But like I personally haven't hired a coach, right? Like I did a bodybuilding prep myself.
Yeah.
I did all of my bodybuilding preps myself. I did marathon preps myself, and leveraged what I knew off other people. Yeah. But then put that in for my own program. Yeah. Or programming. Yeah. And it's been interesting, kind of like knowing that, for me, myself, as in the role that I even am in work, like as a nutritionist or before as a PT and helping people achieve their goals, it's like, it's interesting that I take that side of the fence, but don't take the other side of the fence. Yeah. And because I know how valuable it is to obviously have someone there in your corner, actually holding you accountable to that side of things. And I don't know, I wonder how you've found with your own self-accountability, because maybe that's somewhere that I think we can probably talk about how important it is, obviously, to have someone to be accountable to, but maybe where we kind of are better fitted is actually our own self-accountability. And so what are some ways that you kind of actually keep yourself accountable? Because we're probably, like myself, better at almost holding yourself accountable than finding someone else to hold you accountable.
Well, I definitely struggled at it. Like you can't get overweight without having rock solid, like I had no accountability from what was going in my mouth. It was like, it wasn't like I was living my life going around and being like, oh, body positivity, I'm proud of my fat body. I was never like that. I was like, shit, I have let myself go and I lacked that accountability. And that's why I would say, like, when I reaching out to you, and I found, because of my nature and my competitiveness, I sort of treated shit. I've got to go do a checkup. It's like, it's lingering in the back of my head. It's that accountability that I know you can't lie. When you step on that scale, he pulls your skin and use the calipers. It's, you can't hide from that. You can dehydrate, like you can't even do that. You can't dehydrate yourself. It all reflects if you're trying to go and sweat it out before you turn up to the scale, and because I think you froze off your composition, right? Or with your extra water weight, and you become fatter or something like that.
You can on a scan it will. Yeah. On a skin fold it does sweet fuck all really, because all it does is it just shows that your fats fold is going to be the same, irrespective of how much water's sitting in there, because it's directly measuring just the fat fold. Yeah. And so it's like, you can try, but the fat's still going to be there. Yeah, and it's just less water's there to be there, so the scale might reflect it, but then it actually will throw your body fat percentage up higher. It'll show your body fat higher
because your weight is lower, but you've got the same amount of fat, whereas actually it disperses it if you got more water weight.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, like and that was a huge thing for me. I think it wasn't that it was daunting. It was like, to me, I was like, okay, cool. I've got something that is a regular checkup, and that's why I still, like, when I came to you and got my last check, I've been on pretty decent, man. I've been training. I was doing my half marathon prep, and I was staying on top of it. But it's good to know and get a little check in. It's like a little update, and then just making sure that you're not veering off the path too far, or you're making sure you're aligning with your goals, and that's what I found.
Yeah, and maybe that's actually an interesting distinguishment, because it's probably more worthwhile when you can leverage that whilst you're trying to achieve a goal, and maybe that's the difference between having someone that will keep you accountable and your own accountability, is in the difference between, obviously you always need your own accountability at some point in time, irrespective of whether you're achieving a goal or maintaining, but maybe the maintenance side of things, it's more important to that point to kind of, learn systems and tools to kind of have your own self-accountability and keep yourself accountable, versus, when you're looking to progress towards a goal, you're almost leveraging that zone of proximal development, that kind of like, okay, where's that thing that's just outside of my reach that I can leverage off someone else to help me kind of keep progressing towards my goal, as opposed to maybe when you hit the goal, or you're happy with where the goal is, actually, what are the systems in place that I can use to keep myself accountable so that I don't regress from my goal, so that I can kind of keep where I'm at, rather than necessarily, again, needing to push that boundary in the current area.
Yeah, well, like, that's why I think I visualize. Yep. Because visualizing is a huge thing for me, and it's quite funny. I'm not the person that's sitting there visualizing on a daily basis. I sort of cycle it in. I did that waking up app for a month, and then I was like, I enjoyed sitting in my mind, and then I was like, actually, I'll pick back up visualizing. So I'm visualizing in the morning now, because I've run out of the 30-day free trial, and I enjoyed it.
Send them an email.
I have. I actually just did it 2 days ago. So I'm going to, but yeah, and I started picking up visualizing, and I was like, again, and I still have the exact same thing. I've got like a little recording on my phone, and I just play it, and it's my own voice going, and then I was just saying, I'm going to retire my mother, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to go do that. Yeah. And like, these are things that are probably outside of my reach right now. Like, if I went out the door and tried to execute on those things right now, they're so far away that they're laughable. Yeah. But the way I think with visualizing is, I've made a declaration to the universe, that's something I want, and then I have to figure out, well, how do I even become that person that can go out and achieve that? I need to acquire that middle circle, that extra layer of skill set, or picking up an additional additional skill set that'll get me one step closer. And it sort of makes, when you visualize and you think forward and then you sort of reverse engineer and go, okay, well, how would this person become the person that's halfway there versus to the person that's going to be the whole way there? And you go, oh, well, they need this skill set. They need that amount of fitness. They need that amount of time. They need that amount of knowledge. They need, and it's usually a time investment, right? Like it's like they need more time investment. We're like, well, I need to start doing that now, or, address the reality that it might even be further up the line.
Yeah. And well, when you do the visualization, how do you feel like this, or that impacts the day-to-day or your day-to-day tasks? Like, is there crossover between when you, I don't know, get fronted with a barrier or an itch that you want to scratch, a donut that you want to eat, or anything like that? Like, do you find the visualization at that point helps, or is there crossover?
Yeah, like I wouldn't trip over 50 cents for the sake of $1. Like it's like, it's a donut here. It's not how far is it going to be throwing that end goal away from me. Like it's not really going to be too much of a barrier. But I do understand that if I was a donut every day, how far away from that person I will be. Like
sure.
And it's just realizing those things, and not, because I have a hard time relaxing. I still haven't had a day off of any sort of either gym, running, or physical activity in months. Like, and I'm okay with that. Like I kind of, it's weird. There's a lot of content out there, and like they're saying, oh, rest, and I definitely see value in rest, and I do notice, and I just move it around whenever I need to rest. I guess if my muscles are sore, I won't be doing so much of an intensive workout at the gym. If my joints are sore from a lot of cardio, like the RPM, I'll just kick back a little bit on the weights. And it's when I'm sitting there and I'm constantly thinking like, well, it's might sound bad as like did you do everything you can to, like I want to move the needle every day, like, and that's sort of as I'm out walking the dog after I've already done an RPM class, or I've done some running, or the gym as well, and I'm out there, I was like, well, these are the moments I'm moving the needle a bit further, like I'm either against whether it's my competition or whoever, is in my own head that I'm fighting against that doesn't exist, but like it's just it makes me, I guess, sleep better at night knowing I gave quite a lot. And I don't think I do every day. I don't think I'm doing everything I can, like I'm not quite like that, but I can go to sleep at night every day going like, fuck, I did quite a lot today,
Where do you start to notice I'm moving the needle, or is there a conscious effort prior to, like for me, maybe journaling? So I don't know if you're continuing, if you're still journaling, or whether that's kind of coming into it. And I'll go into where I kind of think mine starts to fit into this picture soon. But is there a time where you notice I'm moving the needle? Because I think it's important, and I've written about it recently, just around the concept of kind of like acknowledging your wins. And I think it's very important, and I think a part of the accountability system or your own self-accountability system is actually in acknowledging the things that you're doing when you're doing them. Like most of the time we go and, let's say we go to the gym or we go for a walk, but we don't actually acknowledge the fact that we've done that and that was a win. We'd kind of just we tick it off a list without really actually feeling the tick. And so feeling the tick and actually being like, oh shit, like, going for a walk after knowing that you've been to the gym, and just sitting in that and thinking as you're walking, like, okay, I'm moving the needle. Like I'm doing the thing that's actually needed to be done. Like I feel like that's such a missed step in people's. You don't need as much discipline, right? Like if that's something that you already intrinsically think is moving the needle or intrinsically enjoyable, and you go and do them automatically because they're intrinsically rewarding. It's not using discipline. Like you don't need discipline to be like, oh fuck, I got to go for a walk. Or if you do, it's a lot less. Like the step is a lot lower than if you were like, oh my God, I got to go for a fucking walk today. I've just been to the gym. I don't want to go for a walk today. I actually completely see what you're talking about.
I guess the standard that I've set, and then just like just a clear line in the sand, and I don't step below my standards. And then when I notice I'm moving the needle is when it's, I think, like you're saying, that step, it's like that next step above. It's just those ones where I do notice, I go, oh, okay, this is something, like I had a prime example. I told you, like I got home at midnight the other night, and then I had to get up for a booking at 6 a.m. And on the drive home from an hour away, almost midnight, so leaving at 11, I was like, this is moving the needle. It's like, this is what other people, I guess this would be the way that I describe it. This is what I feel other people would just throw in the towel and be like, I'm not going to do that today. And that's when I feel like I'm moving the needle. And that's when I brought up before, like when after I'd had a big day of, I have my normal gym and cardio sessions all the time, but it's when you're built up multiple days in a row, like thrashing your body, and then but you still don't veer on the walking the dog, and then I'm just out there. It's raining, so that's the thing as well. It's one of those moments where it's like, well, I could just not walk the dog because there's so many logical reasons just not to walk the dog. You've already done an hour and 15 minutes of cardio, then you've already worked out for an hour and 15 minutes at the gym, and then you also walked and worked hard at work, and then it's just like, well, but you normally walk the dog. And then I was just like, so I'm going to walk the dog, and then you're out there and it's pouring down in rain and you don't see one other person, and this is at night, at 8 o'clock at night. That's when I go, that needle's being moved today. Like it's doing those things that I know other people, they can follow my routine majority of the time, but it's just those wins, like you're saying.
Yeah. Which I think actually acknowledging them, reflecting on them, and sitting on them is super important. And again, like it helps with your own self-accountability without actually really needing to be directly accountable, because the more you acknowledge it, the more it is that you're likely to do it. Like if you go out for a walk and it's pouring with rain and you're like, fuck this, I just want to get home. Like, is there any wonder why you don't want to do it the next time? Like just the way that you're talking about it, like it's already working it up to be something negative.
Yeah.
Whereas, shit, I'm moving the needle, I'm doing the thing. Yeah. Like if you get a couple of those wins,
it's a big paradigm shift, right?
Massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Especially when, if you've built that up on better days to begin with. So if it was, you started this in the middle of summer, you took the dog for a walk. By the time the rain comes, you've already used to taking the dog for a walk. Now, sure, you're still going to get fronted with, it's raining, do you still want to go for a walk? But you do that once and you quickly realize that, okay, you get wet. Then what?
Yeah.
Well, you come home and you
well,
have a
my
shower.
decision is now is what jacket do I put on?
Yeah, right.
It's either my warm jacket or shit, maybe I'll put a jersey on and my rain jacket.
Rain jacket. Yeah.
Because it's just going to rain on me.
Yeah, exactly. And then you come home and you have a shower and you get wet again.
Yeah.
Like,
pretty much.
Yeah. You quickly realize that it's like, a lot of it is end up being built up in your own head, which is, again, it's almost the antithesis to self-accountability, is like you're self-sabotaging in that respect because you talk yourself out of something rather than talk yourself into something. And I mean, for me, actually, the journaling practice and just habit tracking in my journal every day has been key for that.
Yeah.
Because even if I don't follow through with a certain habit, or if I miss a day, I still just turn up and face the page. Yeah. And
because what's your self-talk? Is there self-talk in there? Like when you, I guess if you might notice on some habits that you miss, like what's that like in the journal? Like,
well, so it used to be,
like you should have done this.
Yeah.
Should have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now it's like what?
Well, now I already realize it. So I think through meditation, I've kind of gotten to the point now, and I've built enough connections between the things I know I should do and the things I know I shouldn't do. And especially the longer you meditate, again, like we did, you quickly realize how quickly your mind travels on different thoughts, and when you begin to notice when you're off track, like that's the goal of it, right? Like you're noticing when you're off track, so you can come back on track. Like that's exactly the same when you're achieving a goal. Notice when you're off track, come back on track. The exact same process of begin again is exactly this. Like, and meditation for me is training that every day. And it's training that by looking at the thought or my thinking and trying to catch that. But what I first started was a very deep arm wrestle with my own self.
Mm.
And it was like, you're a fucking idiot. Why are you thinking about what you need to do today when you should be here thinking about nothing? Like, I was trying to think about nothing. And it's like, you're doing the wrong, you're arm wrestling the wrong person, mate.
Yeah.
But that's exactly how I would look at my goals. And so every time I'd go in and like, did you train today? Or did you read today? Or did you meditate today? As soon as I saw a no, I'd be like, you're a fucking idiot. Why did you miss that? Oh, you were doing, I don't know, scrolling fucking YouTube instead of jumping on just sitting on the couch kind of thing and meditating. And I'd play the same arm wrestle game with missing the mark. Like every time I missed a habit, I would be like arm wrestling myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until like you start to just focus on that same transition of just noticing it, just notice it without necessarily trying to arm wrestle yourself. Like you've
I was
done
really bad at that, eh? I had sorry to interrupt. I would be really hard on myself, and I think when we done that podcast about restarting or starting again, like I was really hard on myself. And then last night, quite literally, I missed my journal, and I've been really good on it lately. And I was like, I missed it, and then I was like, I don't care. It's 10 to 10. I'm going to bed. Like, I'm not going to let it soak up any of my mental capacity because I need to focus on the next day, you know?
Yeah. And the key is actually just being able to see it. Like the win is seeing it. So even though you don't do it, the key is that you saw yourself not doing it. Because at that point, it becomes a decision. The quicker you can see yourself doing it or not doing it, you now have a decision whether or not you can do it or you can't do it. If you're looking in retrospect or you're looking back in the past, so journaling, right? If I'm looking at my journal and I can see the dot on the page, well, there's absolutely nothing I can do about yesterday. Yesterday's already passed. The only thing I can do is, and this is where it becomes accountable, is I can see that I've missed it yesterday. I can realize that I missed it yesterday, and I can do something about that today. And so now I can make a plan to go in, okay, where can I meditate? Where can I read? And if it's still a goal, if it's still something that's important to me, because I can see myself missing, I can then strategize a way so that I don't miss again.
Yeah.
But I have to also acknowledge the fact that I am going to miss again. I'm fucking human.
Yeah.
Like, we're all going to fuck up eventually. And so when we do, the easiest thing is to just try and see it, because the more you can see it, now what happens is that I don't need to consult my journal. I already know on the day that I'm missing the mark. And I'll be like,
straight away. And then sometimes you can correct the error, right?
Correct.
And you're like, shit, I can pick it up, or I can swing back to that, later on.
Exactly. And now I can actually, you've got time to salvage the day and salvage the things that you otherwise wanted to do, because you can now actually notice it in real time. But I find a lot of the time you actually have to work back. And so a big part of my own self-accountability is actually just, one, sticking to trying to meditate as much as I can to train that practice of seeing it. But the second part is actually just putting it in the journal and tracking the things that are important to me, but actually trying to be a little bit less arm wrestling, less self-critical of my own shortcomings.
Yeah.
And I think now I'm a little bit better at it because I've seen the benefit of doing it that way. Whereas to start with, I couldn't grasp as soon as I heard the word compassion, I was like, fucking pussy. Like, no one needs that shit. Like, it was just like, I almost found myself going away from that and trying to arm wrestle, because I was like, nah, I can beat you. Like, I can beat the habit. And it's like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I kind of just gave into that, where actually, okay, jotting it down, just noticing it, jotting it down. Over time, that's built a connection. And so now when I'm not doing something, I can catch myself. It feels like a bloody itch or a cramp in me. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing something right. And I can pick up on that. And now that's the sign. And now it's like, okay, the accountability kicks in. It's like, do you still want to do that thing? Because tomorrow or tonight, you're going to be sitting down with your pen and you're going to be reflecting. And that's building in that kind of self-accountability system, I found anyway, for me, has been super helpful. Just being able to kind of like catch the falls. But again, the key there is just not judging the falls.
Yeah. Like you brought up something important, I think, like we probably need to address as well, is like we're kind of we've done 75 hard. We're on the path of accountability already for us, and it's apparent to us. And so we're kind of like talking about like how we pick up things that we know that we should be holding ourselves accountable to. But there's a lot of people that have zero accountability, and I feel like we probably need to talk about that. Like, what was it for yourself or myself, like, that made us realize, holy shit, we're in control. The way that I think is ultimate accountability. Everything that's good in my life is my fault. Everything that's bad in my life is my fault. And when you absolve yourself, well, it's not even absolve, it's taking full accountability and taking the blame away from anyone else. That's when you can fully take on that accountability and realize, all right, my life is in my own hands, and you can always find an excuse why that person could have done this and would help me and blah blah blah, or I should have done this, should have done that, and my mum and dad will be here, not where they are now. It's like but you're not really taking any personal accountability. I feel there's a huge problem in today's society. It's like, oh, I would have done that if it wasn't for this guy. Yeah. I would have done that if it wasn't for that guy. And you're kind of moving away from, either whatever you will find as ultimate success or comfortability within yourself, and or just even that accountability and just knowing that you are responsible for your life. So no one is to blame other than you. But at the end of it as well, no one is to blame but you as well. So if you climb to higher heights, and you don't need to go and point to anyone and be like, oh, thank you to you. You're the person who put me here. We put ourselves wherever we end up,
Yeah, I mean, you're the only constant in your own narrative.
Yeah.
Like, you're the X factor.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Well, I feel like there's just heaps of people playing the victim, like, if it wasn't for this person doing this to me at that time, I would have been a millionaire, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you could probably trace it back to moments that were just before that bad thing happened to you, and you could have made other decisions to maybe not go to that party or this, or you met that person at that point, and then you would have never crossed paths, or something like that led to your big thing that made that really, really tragic thing that happened to you. It's
like the Stoic version, or the Stoic kind of principle of focus on what you can control and disregard the things you can't control. Like, inherently, all that, and what you can control is how you respond, what you think about, and how you act.
Yep.
And it's like everything else is almost
uncontrollable
outside of your realm. And so, when you come face to face with these problems or certain issues, it's what can you control in that? Because inherently that's as good as you can do. And I mean, I think a lot of the time when I came to a bit of a crossroad with it, it's actually realizing, and I think we talked about it before, but the ramifications of your own bad habits. And it's like a crossroad you get to, and you're like, fuck. Weights, finance, etc. Right? Yep. You get to a place and you're just like, shit. Like,
yeah, I dropped the ball.
Yeah,
and you can 100%. Almost trace it back to when you could have made that pivotal difference.
Yeah,
when you wouldn't have gone down that path. Like, that's where I think that accountability comes in, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally. And sure, like if you saw it earlier, you might have been able to do something about it earlier. But again, outside of your control, like because the past is in the past. There's nothing you can do about the past.
Yeah,
and so. Now in identifying that, okay, well, what can I do now to go ahead? Much like you with regards to, reaching out and getting a plan in place. And so it's like identifying once you're there, and a lot of times, that's why I say it's remove the guilt, remove the fucking arm wrestle, because at that point you need to be able to move forward. And every time you arm wrestle, you almost just like shut it down and like push it back into the past and like, tomorrow's job. It's like, no, it's today's job. But to do that, you have to be willing to front that shit and be like, oh, okay, like, yes, I've been a fucking dickhead in my relationship. I've been self-absorbed and I've only been thinking about myself. Fuck, what a pill to swallow. Okay, how can I now be a better person so that then impacts someone else around me? How can I take responsibility for my own health so that I don't continue down this path? How can I bear the burden of responsibility of finance for the family so that I set my family up for a better future? Fear is the spirit of evil is the negation of the life force by fear, and only boldness can deliver us from fear. And if the risk is not taken, the meaning of life is violated. Like, inherently, everything that we come to, like the responsibility, often is negated by your own fear or insecurity. And through continuing to arm wrestle it and push it to one side and not adopting that responsibility is actually just negating your meaning of life in the first place. Because wherever you're falling short is actually where you can progress. And if you front up to that and adopt that as a responsibility in whatever area it is, like we've all got strengths and weaknesses. And so it's like, actually, what are those weaknesses? Because at that point, okay, now you can start to see that progression. You can start to see that development, but that will mean adopting responsibility for that. And in doing so, it is that kind of ultimate accountability. It's that you bear the responsibility for each of those decisions that you make. But I think the key is, like, you can only be responsible for the things that you see, and there's so many things we don't see, but don't let that stop you. Like, you still need to adopt the responsibility for the things you see, so see them.
Yeah. Like, I feel like people are constantly... I think they think they're doing the right thing by putting blame on other people, and then they go, oh, well, that's not my fault. I didn't do that because John didn't turn up to work on time. As when you could really, realistically, it's more amicable when when you fess up and go, okay, I realize he didn't turn up on time. I should have just got started on the project anyway. You're kind of palming it all off. And soon as you actually take that accountability, a lot of people, they respect you more for it, because, like, people see that, like, oh, that person's just, it's like, there's so many, how many people have we engaged with in our life that it's never their fault. It's never their fault. There's always an external factor. There's always something. Traffic was bad. My car broke down. It's like, well, you can say, well, one, leave earlier, or one, maintain maintenance on your car and it won't break down.
100%.
Like there's things like that you can put in place, but it's just never your fault, And I feel like a lot of people are moving away from the blame, when realistically, once you actually take the blame on and you say it's your fault, what is anyone else going to say to you? And you're going to be like, oh shit,
exactly,
I can't insult him anymore. I was like, well, no. And then, because when you go and give me that rebuttal, oh yeah, then I get to come back to you and be like, actually, you could have left work earlier, or you could have maintained your car a bit better, mate. Like, I can't come back at you when you go, yeah, that's my fault.
Exactly.
And then it's the end of that conversation, where I feel like people are inherently afraid of that first initial reaction. But when you take it on yourself, and then it's actually good for yourself, one, it moves you right to the next step. Or, okay, well, how do I solve this problem?
Such a good point, because I think a key component in being self-accountable is literally the ability to catch your excuses. Like, again, and this is where the non-judgment thing comes in, like trying to remove the guilt that's associated with it, or not trying to judge that, because you actually want to catch yourself in the moment trying to make excuses. Every time that you can hear your voice making an excuse, giving yourself an out for something, that's the catalyst, that's the trigger that you need. You're in your meditation session and you notice yourself thinking about fucking tomorrow's breakfast or some shit. Like, that's the thing that should catalyze you to be like, fuck, I'm doing it again. Okay, now I can take responsibility. A lot of the time you'll go to it innately. Like, you've done it probably for fucking 30, 40 years, 20 years in the past. It's unlikely that you're going to change the habit just like that.
Yeah.
But you can notice when you're doing it. And so if you notice those excuses and you're like, oh shit, I'm justifying my actions again, or I'm trying to find an excuse out of something. Yeah. As soon as you hear yourself giving yourself a justification or trying to talk too much about why you did a certain thing, use that as the example. And that's exactly I need to front up to my shit. Where was I wrong in this instance? I was late. Okay, cool. Own that. Yeah, I was late.
Yeah.
Apologies. I respect your time.
It's not happening again.
Yeah. Done. And owning that, like, again, you can use your excuses in that instance. Just like fucking, if you want to go and have the donut, right? Like, you can use the craving for the donut as I want the donut.
Yeah.
Huh. As soon as you realize that that's what you're thinking, now you can do something about the action. Now you can choose whether you want to have the donut or not. You can choose whether or not you want to continue giving yourself an excuse or not. And it's not up to me to judge whether or not you give yourself the donut or give yourself the excuse or not. Like, I don't give a shit. But you get to.
Yeah.
But you can only do that by using that as a trigger.
Well, you got to live in the results of either decision. So, like,
Exactly.
It's ultimately up to yourself. Do you want to be in the results of that or the results of that? Like, and then it's just everything is like binary, right? It's just like that or that, and then you move to the next one. It's that or that.
I call it an adult choice. Yeah. It's like you just bear the result of the decision. But most of the time, we're doing these or making these decisions unconsciously. And it's like, actually, as soon as you begin to notice all those times that you're giving yourself an excuse, you know, oh, it's raining outside. Bang, right there. Okay, I'm giving myself an excuse. I don't want to go for a walk. Should I go for a walk or not?
Yeah.
And I think that's where you can often use, like, or at least leverage, being like not necessarily self-responsible, but
I think relationships could be a good point to add in there. Like having someone there that you've told them, you know, like I have it with Judith. Is like I want to be doing this amount of work. If you see me coming up short, be like, are you going to do that? And that's all I need is that little spark again. I'll be like, okay, yeah, I did say I wanted to be, you know, consistent in this and I want to be doing that. And it actually sort of it goes and pulls me back in and like a flick of a switch back into gear, you know, it's just like, okay, sweet.
And again, because I can almost picture in this moment, like so many people, they'll get that hint and they'll be like, don't tell me that I need to do that. You know, like,
well, she goes,
don't pull me up on my bullshit.
Yeah, but she goes, you told me to tell you.
Yeah.
And then you have to think back to that time and you go, it's like, okay, I did.
Exactly.
I get her to do it for whenever because we talked about positivity, but I'm huge on just like keeping the negativity, even if things are just gone absolute to shit. I don't see any strength in having a constant negative aura or a negative vibration or comments, anything, even talking ill on others. If I catch myself doing that, I just want to just instantly go, okay, in the middle of it, just like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
Shut up. And then I say it to her, like, can you just
pull me up on that?
I am hard on her because I said to her, I can't, you know, I don't want to be with a person that's just negative my whole life. I was like, I won't live that life. And so I've been hard on her, but then I also said, well, and same goes for me. I don't want to be that person that's just bitching and moaning to you. Yep. I think we've got one of the greatest lives ever. I think we're so blessed. So why, even if things are slightly going wrong, it doesn't really matter. Like being negative, is that going to help it? No, it's not.
And you want that person that is able to do that because it makes the connection easier. Like I said, like for me, it's actually as soon as I put it in the journal that I'm making the connection. So even if I'm missing the mark or having to put a dot on the page, I'm seeing the dot and I'm making the connection of, I've missed it. Why did I miss it? That's right. I was tired or stressed or whatever. Like, don't judge that. See it. Same thing as when they pull you up. Stop trying to judge them for pulling you up on your shit. You asked them to.
Yeah.
And so when they pull you up on your shit,
don't snap at them.
Yeah, notice that they're doing the thing that you've asked them to and you're pulling you up on your shit. And you're like, that's right, I am. And again, like the initial reaction, especially if you're new to this, will be to judge that or to rationalize a way out of it. There's a second noticing point.
Yeah, but this actually happened and that's why I'm bitching and moaning.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like...
Use that as the trigger.
Yeah.
Like notice the justification at that point. It's like, yes, your justification is literally a sign that you're missing the mark. And so, okay, now you still have that same decision. Do you come back to it? And the likelihood is that you're going to need to do it a fucking million times in order to change that. And so every time they pull you up, thank them for that. You want them to do it.
Yeah. Because if you scold them every time they do it, they're going to just stop doing it.
They'll just stop doing it. And then there's the self-sabotage, you're giving yourself an out. It's like, no, you want that. You want to reinforce it. It's thanking them for pulling you up on your shit rather than getting defensive that they're pulling you up on your shit. And I mean, for me, that's been a big one, even in just relationship anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, every time that you're fucking blowing your lid at me, it is the likelihood of me missing the mark in somewhere. And so it's like, okay, how can I actually realize where I'm missing the mark? And what can I bring to that table? Because I want that. Like, I want to be better. and you want to bear that responsibility.
Mm.
But again, like I said, a lot of the times you actually need to see it first. And the more you see it, I think the more you can actually do something about it.
Yeah. And I guess maybe we're in people's ear too soon in their journey. And
True.
maybe they got to address a few things before they even
100%.
decide that their whole life is... Because there's always going to be people that are going to be like, after, if they're listening to this, they're going to be like, oh, what do you mean? You don't know my story, blah, blah, blah. Your whole life, whether you're hearing this at the right time or the wrong time, your whole life is a result of what decisions you make.
100%.
You are your own creation. You can create your life into whatever you want it to be. I'm in the middle of that, and everyone starts at different starting points. But you are still in control of how you act, what decisions you make, and the actions you take. And if you're not in the position you want to be in, you're the only person to blame. And don't go blaming anyone else. And maybe it's too early for you to hear that. But if you think about this 5 months or 5 weeks down the line, and you actually go, holy shit, that's what he means. It's like, I just went and just sat in slump and did nothing for 5 weeks, and I didn't do anything towards whatever their goal is. You made no effort towards it. You didn't change any of your decisions. So therefore, you're still it's your fault why you're still in that position.
Yeah, 100%.
Should we just leave it there? Yeah, awesome.
Sounds good. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for listening.